Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and my colleagues allowing me to ask a few questions here today. Director Jarvis, I wanted to ask a clarification on an answer you gave to a previous question. When they were discussing the monuments on the mall, you talked about barricading them off because of protection of property, that was the purpose for barricading them. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I had assumed it was for protection of individuals that may go onto that property or for liability reasons, but your number one objective was really to protect the property that was there.
It's my responsibility to protect the monuments and memorials.
Okay, well, thank you with that. As you know, I'm from South Dakota. We have Mount Rushmore in our state. Obviously, it's a mountain that has been carved. It's viewable by a state that goes up the mountain and around the mountain. You can also go into the national park and view it from there up close and personal and enjoy that opportunity to do so, which millions of people do. Mr. Jarvis, have you visited Mount Rushmore before?
Yes, I have.
Okay, it's beautiful, isn't it?
It is.
It is.
Extraordinary.
We had one family that drove all the way to South Dakota, drove 1,000 miles, got to South Dakota and found that they could not access Mount Rushmore or even drive on the state highway and view it because it had been blocked off by park officials. Were you aware of that?
I was aware the park was closed. I was unaware of the specifics at the local site.
Do you know who made the decision to block that state highway and access to areas where they could view the monument, not even necessarily get into the viewing area, the actual park, but that didn't even allow them to get to a part of the mountain where they could view it from afar? Do you know who made that decision?
Those kind of decisions were made at the local level about where to close, which roads to close.
That family that drove that far found themselves not being able to view Mount Rushmore, and then we got hit with a blizzard that hit South Dakota. 4 to 5 feet of snow landed in the Black Hills. They spent the next 3 days in a ditch somewhere in their camper, which was a very unfortunate trip, not the way that we like to have people visit South Dakota. It was a tragic situation that happened, and not only that, those cones that were along the road, I'm not necessarily sure what happened to them during that blizzard situation, but the day after, when everybody was digging out, we had many, many buildings that had caved in. Tens of thousands of livestock have been killed by this. It's the worst disaster we've seen in western South Dakota in anybody's lifetime. The economic impact from that is going to be huge. Trees were down, streams were plugged, towns were flooding, and the very next day, the park officials were out there putting those back along that highway in 4 to 5 feet of snow. And I'd like to know if you really think that should have been their priority that morning.
I was not involved at the local level. I could not, and I don't set local priorities like that.
Well, it got the people around that area pretty steamed up because they were extremely upset that here they had lost their businesses, they had lost their livestock, they couldn't access their homes, they were trying to dig out and protect people, and that the Park Service was mainly concerned with going out and placing cones. It didn't allow them to even view what they see as partly their monument as well from afar. It was very disturbing to them. From that point, do you believe it was appropriate to take that type of action at that point in time?
I can't comment on local issues like that. I have no knowledge of which pullouts, which roads, or any of that. I just don't have that kind of local information.
I know that very soon after October 1st, the state made the request to the Park Service to run the monument themselves and to incur that cost themselves, and they were told that that was not going to be allowed at that point in time. Since then, the state of South Dakota has again requested, and that agreement has been made. So it is open and operating today. What's interesting is the way that South Dakota approached it is that our governor called up businesses and asked them if they would sponsor a day at Mount Rushmore. It made me so proud. Businesses lined up to fund Mount Rushmore for a day because they recognized it was such a treasure and so special to our state that they would do that. So it's not taking taxpayer dollars, it's separate organizations that are funding it for the day, which was a wonderful way to get through this type of a situation that's been so hard for many. I wish we could have done it from the very beginning, because many families were turned away at the gate when they pulled over to take pictures or tried to. It created more of a liability issue because they were parked in the middle of the highway because they couldn't get in the pull-offs. Now, I understand that the pull-offs are grass, dirt, stones, I don't know what property we're trying to protect by putting cones blocking people from pulling over. Do you know what kind of property we're trying to protect?
Again, I can't speak to local pull-off information. I'm sorry. I just
Well, they've
don't have the
since
kind of
been
local
removed
knowledge.
because someone decided that it was going to be very important that somebody not get killed on that mountain and be able to pull their vehicle over if they were going to and get off onto those pull-offs. So those cones are gone now because of the safety of the individuals that are there. But I will tell you, I don't believe that people's safety has been a priority in this situation. I don't believe it was really property that was trying to be protected because, frankly, there was no property that was going to be damaged by those pull-offs. I believe it was punitive. I'm upset about it. I'm thankful for the way that South Dakotans approach things. They do it the right way. And this whole situation has shown me that our park officials need to be very, very clear on what their role is and what their priorities are, and that should be making sure that Americans get the opportunity to view their treasures that are in their national parks and not punish individuals because of situations that are beyond their control. I thank you for your time.
I thank the gentlelady.